Let's do a simple front yard landscape design and learn some landscape design tips along the way. The folks that submitted this picture say they want to reduce the size of their lawn. They don't want to remove it completely, they want to reduce it. They also want to increase the plant and tree cover for a denser, greener yard, multiple layers of plants. They said their favorite color is purple, they also like white, and they'd like that featured in the design area as well. To make this design, I'm using a brand new online design tool called SIMPLYSCAPES. I'm so excited about it, they're adding new features all the time. I'll link to that in the description below. I'll start by cleaning up this picture a bit. So they mentioned that they plan on removing this old pieris shrub from the space, as well as the camellia in the background. So we will essentially have a blank canvas. And it's always good to preserve as many existing plants as possible. But in this case, the pieris is in pretty bad shape. You can see it was, pruned pretty aggressively at one point. And the camellia is planted way too close to the house, so it's going to be requiring frequent pruning indefinitely, and it'll only keep getting bigger. So makes sense to remove these plants. So I'm going to clean up this picture a bit using the cutout tool. It's not going to be exactly perfect. I could make it more perfect than this if I spent a little more time on it, but I'm just going to do something simple so it's easier to visualize what the space will look like once these plants are gone. This picture was taken early in the day and it's currently shaded by a large conifer tree, but this yard will be in pretty hot sun for the rest of the day. I'll also start by covering almost the entire area in mulch, since we're mostly going to have mulched garden bed areas, and then I'll add any additional soil covering materials from there. Now we have this small triangle right here. So assuming that the clients don't want to remove this sidewalk here, they just want to design the gardens around the space and work with what they already have, one of the options is that it could stay lawn. The lawn could also be removed, the soil improved for a very narrow strip of planting, a very small garden bed. If that's the case, these plants should be selected carefully so they don't outgrow the space. You don't want to have to be out there constantly trimming plants off of the sidewalk in a narrow area. And for more tips on how to choose the right plant for the right place, I have a free mini course you could take. It's linked in the description below. It includes resources like a perfect plant checklist so you don't forget anything important. And another option for this space would be to remove the lawn and fill it in with something you could walk on, like gravel, some sort of hardscaping. This is my recommendation because this is a space a lot of folks are going to be walking on. They're probably going to cut corners, step in the garden bed, so it could make sense to remove the lawn from this narrow space and then fill it in with some sort of surface that could be walked on. And to increase the visual interest of this option, you could place a potted plant, for example, in the center of this triangle. Replace it all with gravel, with flagstones, with some sort of hardscape material, and then set a potted plant in the center of it just to keep a little focal point in that space. I did notice a latch in the original picture, so there's some sort of gate in this area. I'm going to assume it goes about halfway, so I'm going to add a pathway using the same material that goes out into the side gate. And something I like to do in as many landscape designs as possible is keep some sort of hardscaped material or surface against the house and not plant things directly against the house. It's not always a terrible thing to have things, plants directly against the house, but from a maintenance perspective, it's much easier if you have a pathway designed along the side of the house. It's easier to maintain the house, it's easier to access the garden as well. We'll assume the gate is here. Something like that. I like to start by designing in the big plants, the larger features first. Let's use a Japanese Zelkova, and this one looks good. Here's a landscape design rule of thumb for you. When you're installing a large tree in a front yard, it's generally good to place it on the opposite side of the front door as a garage or driveway. The reason is it helps the yard appear more balanced. The garage or the driveway has a lot of visual mass, so it makes sense for you to balance that mass with you place this larger tree that has large visual mass as well on the other side of the focal point of the yard. In the case of a front yard landscape design, the focal point is almost always going to be the front door. And we'll plant it a little bit closer to the street than you may expect, just to give a little extra space away from, if this is, if you measured the space, I would say place it about 2/3 toward the street, 1/3 away from the street, like this distance here. So you have a little bit of extra space away from the house. Now let's add the lawn area. I'm thinking a nice oval shape, and I'll bring that right up to the edge of the sidewalk up here. So there's no need for, any strip of mulch in between the lawn and the sidewalk in this case. And then similarly, I'll taper it, so we'll have a little bit of an angle right here, but then we'll bring it right to the edge of the street, right to the curb, and then we'll taper it in, again like so. I'll add a few more points. And here we have it. And these folks mentioned that they want a densely planted landscape, so we'll include a smaller tree. Let's go with an apple tree, and I'll pick one that's flowering currently just for fun. And of course, we're previewing this landscape later, once things have filled in quite a bit. Now let's add some additional landscaping plants. Let's browse our options here. So they mentioned purple. Lavender does really well in hot, dry areas, so it's a good selection for, along the edge of a street like this, along the curb. And I like to plant in odd numbers, so 3s and 5s whenever possible, unless I'm designing something that's intentionally symmetrical. And you can mass plants together as well, so they look pretty good like that. Let's choose a couple larger shrubs. I'm a big fan of black lace elderberry. That'll do well here. I love perennial candy tuft. It is very low maintenance, it's very tough. Also considered a semi-evergreen or an evergreen plant, so it sticks around all winter. It blooms pretty early in the spring or technically late winter. Let's do something like this. It's a great plant for putting close to, the edges of pathways and more narrow areas, like so. Some astilbe would be beautiful. Let's get another shrub, something that gets a bit bigger. How about this purple hydrangea? Let's add something else that's a shrub over on this side. Let's go with another hydrangea, but this time a white. Of course, in this picture, everything's blooming at the same time, but in real life, the apple tree will not be blooming at the exact same time that the hydrangea will be blooming. How about something else that can take a little bit of heat, that can be closer to the street, closer to the curb? Let's go with a sedum. 2 here. Maybe one on the other side of the mailbox, like so. And we could use the cutout tool to put the sedum behind the mailbox. So I didn't do a very good job tracing the edge of the mailbox post there, but look at that. I'll move this candy tuft over a little bit. I'll shift the planting location of these lavenders like that. There, that looks pretty good. And if you're curious about the phases of installation for a design like this, for a front yard like this, you could start by decreasing the size of the lawn, amending the soil if needed, and then mulching the area pretty well. Install the hardscaping as well. So you could plant just the trees one year, then the shrubs the next year, then the perennials the year after that. Of course, you could do it all at once as well. Not too complicated of a design. If you would like a chance to be featured in an upcoming design challenge video, follow the link below to submit your photos. Of course, this is not a substitute for hiring a landscape designer. I cannot do a landscape design off-site in a different climate or just from a picture. There's too much to take into consideration, but I do hope that this provides you with some inspiration and ideas to get you started. And if you're new here, hello, my name is Eve. I'm a landscape designer and a horticulturist, and welcome to Garden Project Academy, where I'm offering online courses, resources like these videos to help you with your next garden project. Please consider subscribing or check out the resources in the description below, like that free mini course, How to Choose the Perfect Plant. Thank you so much for watching and happy gardening.